Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you would mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate it. I also love it when people leave comments, so feel free to leave suggestions for videos, constructive criticism. How you do things is always interesting for me. Other things you'd like to see, so let me know those things. So today I thought I'd make something sparkly, and I have a nice 7mm Blue Topaz that's a round brilliant, and we're going to try and set it in a kind of setting that I haven't made before. It's going to kind of have 4 double prongs sort of that reconnect with each other, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to kind of interweave them a little bit, and we'll see how that turns out. This is sort of based on something I've seen before, but modified in a different way. I may have to put a little ring underneath it to create a platform for the girdle to sit on, but we'll see. Like I said, I've never done one like this before, so it'll be kind of a fun experiment. Before we get started, I wanted to thank some groups of people, my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a couple of new ones. I have Liz B and Ken G. Thank you for signing up for my Patreon. I really appreciate it. I think you'll find, as I have, that group of people over there is super nice and full of knowledge and willing to share their knowledge. So they've created a really nice community over there, and I want to thank them for that as well. So thank you for that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 13,700, I believe. That's incredible, and I really appreciate all of the time that you guys spend watching my videos and all of the nice comments that you leave. Some of those are very touching. I also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffee and the Super Thanks, which helps with the cost of materials these days. They've gotten kind of expensive. So, all right, with that being said, let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea books. I have a number of different ones like this on the merch store with different designs. Some of the newer ones I've started putting some useful charts on the back. This one has a conversion chart for fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters. I find that pretty useful sometimes. There's another one that also has American wire gauge to millimeters for those of you overseas who don't use wire gauges. Anymore, I draw out my designs prior to starting them, so I have kind of a plan in mind, and sometimes it's more of a concrete plan than others, but we start with a drawing usually. And for today's, I have this Blue Topaz that is about a 7mm, and I'm going to prong set this, and my idea is I want to have some prongs that 4 prongs that come from each side and then rejoin with each other in the middle. So this one here will come over to the side, and on the opposite side of the stone, the same one coming off the main band is going to meet with that one and be soldered together. I'll add these to the sides here, and those will go underneath and come together on the opposite side of this. I drew it wrong up here. And so that'll be a prong. So that'll be a prong on either side as well. I may have to flatten the ends here a little bit. I pulled some 16 gauge square wire out of some 14, so I have some of that right here, which is about this wide. I think that'll be about the right size. In order to get these to lay nice though, like I said, I might need to flatten them a little bit up here. So we'll see how it goes. Worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work, and then we'll try something else. But that's how you learn. So I think I'm going to start. I measured this one to be about the length I wanted it to be. I was shooting for about a 7.5. And when you're doing this, you got to consider you're going to measure the length for 7.5, but these parts here are going to be coming up off of the top of that, so you have to add a little bit extra to work with up there. And so this is significantly longer than a 7.5. That's about an extra 20 millimeters, 10 millimeters on each side. These ones are going to have to go all the way out to the sides. I believe I'm going to make them a little bit longer than that. I think I was thinking wrong. Change plans just slightly. Much rather have too much than not enough when you get to the end when you're getting ready to do things. So let's go to about right there. We'll cut 2 pieces that long. That way, if we have extra, we can just cut it off. Alright, so let's get those nice and straight. That's probably a good starting place. I'm going to set him to the side so I don't lose him. And I find when I'm straightening wire, if I just hold it with the flat nose pliers like this and use my fingers to bend, it ends up working pretty well. Square wire, you get it straight in one dimension, then you flip it over 90 degrees and it's not straight anymore in the other dimension. So you kind of keep going back and forth until you get it. Yeah, not bad. Make sure they're all filed pretty close to the same length. Got a little less straight while I was doing that. Let's see if we can get that back in place. Let's find the center point of this. 10, 20, 30, 45. That should be pretty close. One way to check to see if you're pretty close in the center is just flip it around and line the ends up again. Not bad. I think we're within range on this one. Okay, now this is a 7.5, so fold this in half, find pretty close to the center there. So I cut it down to just the size 7. That'll give me a kind of place where if I was to continue this around like that, that would be where the 7 comes to, right about there. Right about there. So, and I'm thinking that's going to end up being about right here when you bend it up. Maybe a little higher than that. So I think we'll have plenty, which is good. And if that's going to come down here, so we need to go in about maybe 10 millimeters this way, a little bit, for where they split. So that inner one, and we'll see if my not very scientific calculations come out right, or at least pretty close. But I want to bend them outwards right there, and that's where we'll solder them along the inside length. If you've never been to my channel before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, and I use a liquid flux that I dribble on or spray on depending upon the situation. The torch I use is a Smith Silversmith model, which is their air acetylene torch, and I really like it. Been using that for many, many years. I actually found, the first one I found was in a thrift store, or flea market, what you might call a op shop if you're in Australia or New Zealand. I'm not sure what they call them in Britain. Canada. But I found one brand new in a package for like $50. Now that would be a steal nowadays. It was a pretty good deal back then too. So I think I wore out the handpiece after a while and I had to get a new one. But okay, so let's solder these together. So I'm going to lay in here, put them on a flat surface. It's peeking in the middle a little bit. That means that the square wire twisted slightly. Let's see if we can get him to lay down a little better. That looks decent. It looks like I have plenty of solder here from yesterday. So let's get this fluxed, and then we can put a few pieces on there. Really like to thank all those people who bought my ebook that I made a while back. It's it really helps support the channel when you buy that. It's a guide to my 2023 tutorials, if you haven't seen that. And it's got extra information about each video, including difficulty rating and a list of materials if you want to try it yourself. Some notes that I made about things I either might do different or what I liked or didn't like about the outcome. There's even a link to the video itself. So I cut these, but before I do that, I'm going to just do a little cleanup filing on this. I'm not getting too crazy because at the end I'll do much of this again, but it will give me an idea whether I got a nice solid seam all the way down. Looks like. So I think since these are going to come out from outside of these, I cut 4 of these at about a little more than 30 millimeters because I want them to stick out a little more, because these ones are going to come back in and meet in the middle, and I want them to kind of separate not too far back from where these split. And so I want to solder it kind of like about like that. So let's scratch a mark. So I can get an idea for that angle there. We can cut that off and then just file it. And then I can kind of use that as a guide for all of these. I think that'll be okay. I guess we'll find out. You could probably use your miter vise jig to do this, although it's not a 45-degree angle. If you have one of those fancy ones that has a 60s and 30s, this might be close to one of those. I think this will be cool. Even if we're wrong on the size, I think we can cut a piece out of the middle if we need to. So I'm going to use this as a guide, and if I do this, sometimes I can scratch scratch a line through black marker that shows up a little more readily, at least to my eyes, if I do this. Line those up like that. You can get pretty close approximation then. Somebody called me Bob Ross with the torch the other day, which was actually very flattering to me because Bob Ross was a good teacher and likable. So that made me feel good. Thanks for that. So now I think we should solder these on. Kind of like that on both sides. And let me show you what I was talking about as far as flattening them out. I did a test on the 16 gauge square here where one of them is going to be crossing over the other one, and it's a little bit thick, you know, and cumbersome. So I may, once we solder these on, I may take my chasing hammer and just kind of flatten it out just a skosh so it's not quite as thick, and then it'll be easier to overlap, I think. So let's get these soldered on and then I'll do that. Interestingly enough, when I was in high school, I very much had an afro like Bob Ross sported, which I didn't much care for. And I've also heard Bob Ross didn't much care for his hair, but he kept it because it became his trademark. So, okay, I'm going to do something called pick soldering, where I pick up a little bit of solder and place it where I want it. It's a super useful skill. If you've never learned how to do that, I have a video about it. You should check it out and give it a try. I think it's a really kind of a game changer. Pick up a little bit of solder like that. The real trick is getting everything up to the soldering temperature before you put it in there. You want both pieces you're soldering together to reach that solder flow temperature, so whatever kind of solder you're using. In the case of the stuff that I'm using, it's about 1450 degrees Fahrenheit. I do not off the top of my head know the Celsius or centigrade or Kelvin. I missed that one. See, I got the smaller piece up to temperature, and so it jumped onto that one. So I kind of jumped the gun there. Not demonstrating it very well today. If you go to my video, I had a good video about it. I add a little bit more right here. Make sure we got a good solid joint. Well, the start of those, these ones are going to just gradually curve outwards. Kind of pre-bending them a little bit, so once they're flattened, it's going to be a little harder to bend them sideways like that. So I thought maybe I'd do a little bit of it in advance. So let's make a mark where we want it to start flattening. I was thinking kind of right about here, start to taper it. Let's just kind of flatten it. I'm going to flatten it more towards the end here and not as much on this side over here. So. So when you do something like that, it does something called work hardening, where it kind of realigns the atoms inside of the metal so that they become stiffer and more kind of interlocked. If you want that to be soft again so you can have it easier to bend, more malleable, you want to anneal it by bringing it close to that solid flow temperature. Let that cool for a minute. Okay, let it cool off a bit. Now we got to take these outer ones and bring them around underneath these inner ones. So I'll push them down just a little bit like that. Kind of like that, maybe. Play with the proportions a little bit. I'm going to measure from where the crook is right there to the top of this one. That's about 10 to 12. This one's a little taller than this one. That's pretty good. So I think I am going to cut down the middle of these two with a saw. And solder those together, and then we'll see from there. Okay, let's go back and solder those together. Let's give this a go. I was getting this prong a little too hot there because I was distracted for a moment. Okay, so my next step is going to be to bend this around a mandrel, like this. Then I need to think about how I'm going to get these all to meet in the right place. So I'm going to play with the shape a little bit, and then I'll come back and show you what I conclude. So, be right back. Okay, I think I've figured out kind of how I'm going to do it, and I've kind of got it in the positions I want. So on these ones, I actually twisted them around so that the flat side is facing that, and I think I'm going to cut them down the same way I did on the other side. Kind of tried to position them so that they're just about the right size for the stone, but allows for some moving in and out to get it just right. And so I think I'm going to cut these and solder these like this. Then we can worry about shaping the rest of the ring down here and everything. But I'll be right back. I'm going to cut those just like I did before. So I've got this side lined up pretty nicely. This side I still need to work on, but I'm going to go ahead and solder this side, and then it'll make it easier to get this lined up nicely because I don't think things will be moving around as much. What I'm trying to do here is I want the tops of these to be pretty symmetrical and even. Like at the same height or pretty close. Let's do that. So I have this kind of pushed in there, and you can see this kind of lined up like that, so I can get an idea just about where I'm going to put that ring, because I am going to put a ring in this for the stone to sit on. Just a little, I cut a little groove in the top of each of these in order to hold it into place, at least a little bit. So I think if I make it just about the size of the diameter of the stone, maybe a tiny bit less, and then just do it right below, let's see, right below the notch that I carved on these two sides here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'll use this as a guide on how big of a ring to make, and I'll use a little bit of 18 gauge round. I don't want to be able to see the ring, so I'm going to take just a tiny bit more off. I'm going to make sure this is sitting flat, so I'm going to try and position it inside of here at just the right height. But this way. That's pretty good. Actually, maybe that's the best way to do it. Let's see. Again, we'll just pick a little bit on there. This is why these magnesia blocks are useful now and again. So you can just push something down into it. So this is sitting really high, and so I think what I might do is I might cut a little bit out of here and resolder it at a slightly smaller size, and then shape this around the mandrel. And then we'll pickle it, and then I will set that stone. Okay, I'll do a little bit of shaping and then I'll polish it and we'll set the stone at the end. Okay, I went ahead and ended up setting this off camera because it was a kind of a challenging set, and I'm not even sure I'm 100% secure in this one, so I may pop the stone out and do lower it slightly in that ring by tapering the ring a little bit this way, a little bit more, so that the stone sits down a tiny bit more. But whenever you're bending some thick silver like this over, it's relatively challenging, and I don't have a hammer bit or a Fordham tool, which would have made this a little bit easier. So I was, bearing down on it in order to get it in place. And I like the way it looks, but I'm not 100% sure it'll stay in there. So I will probably pull it out tomorrow and do a little bit more work and get it, but I wanted to get it done tonight so I could get this a picture of it and we could get it made into a video. So, but yeah, I think it came out okay. Kind of like that. It actually looks, it doesn't stick up as high as I thought it would on the finger, and I kind of like the way it looks when it sits on your finger. It might be a good ring for people who have knuckle issues because it's got this big open space like that. So you could slip it on and then it stays pretty securely anyway. So I think it came out actually quite nice. So I'll get it cleaned up a little bit more and take some nice pictures for the end. Alright, well that was the interwoven 4 prong ring. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And also take a moment and check out some of my other videos. I have 360 or 370 videos now. There's almost certainly something that will appeal to you if you enjoyed this one. I try to create content that's at different skill levels so that a number of different people can find what they're looking for here. So check it out and see if there's some other things you like here, and then maybe subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And finally, don't forget to hit the video description down below. There are some relevant links down there. There's my ebook, which I talked about earlier in the video. That's a useful guide to 2023's videos. You can buy that there. There's those nice design idea books that I find relatively important these days, and those are available. And you can even check out my Patreon and some of the details about that community over there. So check those out. Come back and visit. I'd love to see you again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.